I did everything right. I wasn't trying to be sketchy or hide from the government, but it didn't work out. My name's Anthony, and we have a small business that I run out of my garage here. We do 3D printing, laser cutting, and CNC routing. Our business exists to help small businesses kind of bring their ideas to life and do production for them. Our business started taking off in 2020, so I wanted to kind of make things legit. I didn't want to be like a guy just selling crap out of his basement on eBay. So I went to a CPA in Kalamazoo, not far from here, and I asked them to set up our business and just do everything legit with the government. I know there's just like a lot of things that are involved with that. So our income level kind of dictated that we should become LLC, taxed as an S corporation, just to kind of take advantage of some of the tax benefits of that, which I didn't really understand until last year when we were doing our taxes. So I paid for the LLC setup. I paid for them to just handle everything. I signed a lot of papers. So for 3 years, they took care of my taxes, my personal taxes, and my business taxes. But I didn't know that there was this giant ticking time bomb that finally exploded in my face when I checked the mail one day and there was a letter from the IRS. The letter basically said, hey, you have been filing your taxes as an S corporation for 3 years, and we never got your 2553 S corporation election form. So you got to fix that. It turned out that the paperwork that I paid Trifound to do never got sent in to the IRS. They filled it out. They just forgot to send it in, or they just didn't want to. When I opened that letter, probably at the end of 2023, I got really nervous, so I started to call them, and I never got a hold of them. I called them like every Monday for weeks. I emailed them. They pretty much just ghosted me, and all the way up until the day before taxes were due, I finally got a hold of somebody then, and they basically answered the phone and then said, hey, our tax department has been dissolved. We're not doing taxes anymore. You're on your own. I'm sorry. Bye. They just kind of offered me zero help, zero direction, and these were the kind of the people that I had trusted. And I didn't know that they were negligent at that time. I just thought maybe the IRS messed up. I know that they're really slow doing things. And it wasn't until later how I found out kind of how sketchy this company was. So again, day before taxes are due, I called another CPA here in town, and they were able to file me an extension. So I was good for that year. They ended up taking care of my taxes, and then they started working on this giant mess that Trifound had started for me. Basically what was going on was I had made all this money and I'd filed my taxes as a S corporation, but they never got that form. So they defaulted me to a C corporation. And if you know anything about C corporations, they are taxed at their own rate, and then I am also taxed on my own personal income. So that was just kind of a double taxation thing. So I had that on my hands. I had to pay the new CPA to fix everything, which was months of back and forth, trying to dig up emails and see what was going on. They ended up having to refile those 3 years of business taxes and then the personal taxes. And then there was penalties because I had already owed the IRS money because of the money that I owed them, because they technically never received a proper tax return, because they basically just ignored the S corporation filing because I never gave them the 2553 form. So they're like, hey, you never filed your taxes. You need to file your taxes, even though they gave me a refund for those three years. Which I ended up having to pay a lot of that back. So altogether, my total bill was about $11,000, and I didn't have money for that at the time. When I started looking kind of for accountability, I had called Trifound and they didn't answer. I had emailed them, again, they didn't answer. I looked them up on Google Maps and they didn't exist at that location anymore. So I got a little suspicious, and I looked on the Michigan LARA website, and I was looking at the business owner, and there was multiple businesses listed under this guy, a lot of which were not in good standings with the Michigan government. And some of them were already closed. I could see on there Trifound, not in good standings, Trifound Holding Company, not in good standings. Morgan and Fedig, the company under the company that actually did our taxes, closed. So I called them. I finally figured out what was going on. They had closed their business, probably because they screwed over a lot of people like me. They'd opened up under a new name in Grand Rapids, about 20 miles north of here, under the name Vertis Wealth. So I called them and I said, hello. And they said, hello, Vertis Wealth. And then I was like, is this Justin from Trifound? And he said, we don't operate under Trifound anymore. What can I help you with? And then I explained what was going on because he was the manager that was back at Trifound that I had spoken to before. And he said, hey, Anthony, that's terrible. I think we're willing to help you out with this. Maybe we could get our new tax department to, amend everything. And I was like, well, I already have my people looking into it. And they're like, well, maybe we can just pay them, whatever. So the next day I got a phone call from him and he had a totally different tone. He basically said, hey, I talked to the lawyers here. They said, we're not going to help you out. But we will give you a $600 check if you want to come and sign this paperwork. I looked at the paperwork and it basically said, hey, we're not at fault here. You're waiving your right to come after us basically by accepting the $600 hush money. You're basically just saying we're forgiven, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't take that money. That's just not cool to me. There's nowhere near the $11,000 that I had to pay them. After my new CPA had fixed everything, they filed us as a C corporation. We discovered another bummer. The third year that they had to fix things as a C corporation, we would have had a carryover, which would have helped out the next year. But we were already a S corporation for 2023 or 2024. So that was just kind of like lost money or lost benefits. And then one of the years we ended up getting a refund from the federal government. And they said, you can't have that because statute of limitations is 2 years on that. Which I'm like, bro, I had to pay you for 3 years ago, but you're not going to pay me for 2 years ago. So that's kind of a bummer too. So that was $1,300 in the toilet that I didn't get. I'm not saying this to like make people sad or angry. I've already kind of gone through all of those phases of emotion. So 2 things. If you are a business owner and you are filing paperwork, find somebody that you can trust, really vet them. Never just assume that the pros know what they're doing. There's a form you can get from the IRS, which is basically a receipt. I think it's the CP-261 approval letter. Check that out. If you're in Michigan or somewhere else, I'm sure they have something similar, but the LARO website, check that out first and see if they're within good standings. Maybe Better Business Bureau, Google reviews. Turns out Trifound had terrible Google reviews. If you're in Grand Rapids or anywhere in Michigan, be careful with Vertis Wealth. I'm sharing my story so you guys don't make an $11,000 mistake. Just make sure all your ducks are in a row and maybe double check on the professionals because like I said, they don't always know what they're doing and things can slip through the cracks. Sometimes it could be a mistake and sometimes it could not be a mistake and it could be their 4th company where they're just kind of screwing people. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure you're subscribed and do the little thumbs up thing.